One of the things that we often hear when we start looking at, okay, I'm a distance runner, and how is this negatively impacting me or not impacting me, is the whole idea that we have to have a perfect percentage of our training or somehow we're doing it wrong. And what I'm referencing is something that's often referred to as the 80-20 rule. Now, I'm going to go ahead and tell you that as a general sort of guide, as a general way of going about structuring our training, it's a pretty good idea. But we don't need to be so adherent to these types of ratios, the 80-20 ratio, meaning 80% of your running needs to be super, super easy, right? And then 20% of it needs to be fast. That's not grounded in any specific science that says if you're at 21% of your running hard, you're doomed, or if you're at 90% of your running easy, you're somehow doomed and destined to not reach your goals, destined for failure. That's not the way it works. The bulk of your running does need to be easy. And when we say easy, we mean conversational. When we say easy, we mean something that we all tend to describe as zone 2 training, or training where your heart rate is typically down in the 130s, maybe in the 140s, even down into the 120s, okay? And what we know is that if the bulk of your training is easy and then a much smaller segment of your training is hard, that is the most effective way to gain fitness. The reason why the 80-20 rule exists is that there has been some really, really good science to support that less hard training and a little bit of really fast training does go a long way. But let's look at it in the context of your volume, right? If you're running, say, 10 miles a week, then 20% of that would be 2 miles, would be fast. Well, in that context, because you're not doing a ton of volume, you might run 3 miles hard, and that might be 30%, right? So you might have a 70-30 ratio on your training. That's still acceptable. But let's say you're running 100 miles a week, like some of my athletes actually do. Well, if you do 70-30 on 100 miles a week, then that means 30 of those miles are run at paces faster or significantly faster than goal race pace. That will leave you literally exhausted, and you will be prone to injury. You will be running the risk of getting chronic fatigue. You will have neuromuscular fatigue. You are literally going to become screeching to a halt if you don't wrestle control of this quickly, okay? In that case, for a 100-mile-a-week runner, it might be an 85-15 split. 85% of your miles in zone 2, easy, however we want to reference it, and then maybe 15 miles of it faster than goal marathon pace or at or below goal half marathon pace, whatever workout you seek to do that's going to meet the demands of training for those races. Frankly, you might be 90-10. Right? I mean, you might go out and run 90 easy miles, and then we might do, 10 miles of lactate threshold work and critical velocity work on a Wednesday morning. And then that week, we might just go and run an easy 20 miles in zone 2 for your long run on the weekend. So the 80-20 rule is not a rule. The 80-20 rule is actually just a guide that emphasizes the need to have the bulk of your training easy, okay? And then a much smaller percentage of it fast. And a lot of it needs to be contingent on your volume, where you are in your training cycle. Are you 12 weeks before the race, or are you 2 weeks before your race? How hot is it? Are you running really, really hilly courses? Are you running extremely fast? Are you doing pure sprint work? You cannot do 10 miles, 15 miles a week of pure sprint work. I mean, technically you can, but I put it to you this way, your body's going to be revolting. Your body is going to dislike you more than anything else on the earth. Your body will say, I do not like you for doing this to me. So let's be smart. The 80-20 rule is a guide, but you don't need to be so uh, um, adherent to it that you lose sight of the fact that you're trying to get fitter and you need to do what makes the most sense for your fitness and your resilience regarding injury, etc.